Hello and welcome to this Project in a Box video tour. In this session we're going to be taking a more detailed look at the working of documents and processes within a project environment. So here we are within the multi-user system in the Windows application, and I'm in a project and I can see my method template navigation diagram laid out in front of me here. It shows a range of different processes, and as I move my pointer, my mouse around the screen, you can see it changes where I can click in, and as I click into a process, that might indeed unpack into some further detail. It might take me straight to some documents. It depends how the method is laid out. But when we get down to this lowest possible level, and it starts to take us to documents in our file explorer, it shows us the documents that are relevant to the process that we're currently looking at. It's sort of context sensitive, if you like. And so here we see project mandate, and when we hover on it, it tells us something about what's required at that particular point in the process. And here we've got executive role and appointment, and we see the cross here indicates that there are some files here that we might be interested in. Some of these might be templates, some of them might be versioned. So our daily log here is still an original template. The executive role here we can see has been through a couple of versions, and we can see who's been working on that. We can see what the current version is here, and that it's available for checkout if we wanted to do that, and if we had enough permissions to do that. And as we work our way on through these processes, the documents that are shown to us change to reflect what's appropriate for that particular process within the methodology. And this is very useful in terms of helping people implement a method, so they can work their way through a navigation diagram and be shown just what they need, rather than taken to a document library which might have 50 or 60 different documents in it, and not know which ones they're supposed to be working on without having to go away and read some additional guidance material, which in practice people rarely do. And in particular, as part of this, we can also put in place blank or empty placeholders for things we want people to collect. So here we can see we've clicked on request to initiate a project, and it's one of the events and records that are required for Prince 2, or recommended for Prince 2, and therefore we've got the empty placeholders here for exactly those things. We can collect that file as a piece of evidence and put it into the system. Some of these will have some sort of templates. Others may have been collected as evidence. In fact, we've got that here. There's an email being added with some content on it as evidence of request to initiate a project. And this is exactly the same process that's applied, or approach that's applied, to all of the different method templates that we use. So let's go off and have a look at a slightly simpler sort of project. Here we've got the office move is sat within the same portfolio, and this is one of our generic project management processes. Uses a very simple start, deliver, close sort of process, and exactly the same sort of thing happens. So we click on the process, we see the documents that are relevant to us. If we've looked at this document before within the last session, it will be open, so it's remembered that earlier on we've been in this project and looked at these particular documents, so they are open in the display. And this ease of following the process makes it very easy to implement a method and to customize it to match the particular requirements of each project type. So you can have different diagrams here, you can have different process steps, you can have different templates in here, different document names, different guidance materials, to make it exactly how you want it to be for your particular organization. So let's have a look a little bit further in this example. We'll take a file and we'll look at some of the information about viewing and checking it out and checking it back in again. Just before we do that, we'll see some status information on these. So I can see within this document I've currently got what we call a modify permission on this document. That means essentially I own it. I could delete things, I can invite other people to work on it via permissions, I can report on it, set notifications on it, etc. We'll talk more about those aspects in other video tours. But I can also therefore see the content. If I just had a read permission, I'd be able to see it. I can work on it, and I can also approve, etc. that content as well. And there's an additional video tour on approvals later on. This document here we can see actually is in an approval process at the moment. There's an approval in progress. And if we click down here, we can see some details about what's going on in that approval activity. So we can see it's one I own actually, and I can see that currently the other two people I've invited to work on it have approved it. I haven't voted yet, and we can see some of the discussion that's been going on around that approval action. This file down here is currently being worked on. The red cross means it's checked out, it's being worked on by somebody, which means it's not available for me to check out and work on. Only one person can work on a file at a time. So I can see Juliet is working on it. If I wanted to find out what she was up to with it, I could use contact user to get her contact details up, email her, send her a message, etc. to ask when, she could put some comments in for me, or when the file might be available for me to work on. The other files here, as we can see, are available for me to check out because they're not in an approval or being worked on by somebody else. So let's go and have a look down here at the project mandate. If I just want to view the latest available copy of that file, I can either use the view button here, I can use right click on here and pick up view, or I can just simply double click on it in the tree. That's the default action. We'll go away and get the latest copy from the server for me to view. Brings back exactly what that file is. It names it very clearly so I know what I'm looking at. I've got a view only copy of that particular version of that file from this project, and it's also put the job number in it for me. It's made it read only because it's a view file, and every time I click to view that file it will go away to the server and get the latest copy, just in case since I last looked at it somebody else had made some changes to it. So let's look at making changes to the file. We can simply check it out from here if we have permissions to do that. So I check the file out. You see it's setting the office properties down here, and these are the office properties here. We have some standard users simple Microsoft document properties. We set some metadata properties for the project. Those are tied to named property types in our templates and auto injected every time the file is checked out. So this is built through the latest available product description, information about sponsors, project managers, customers, job numbers, etc. You can extend this to be whatever you want it to be, and so you can feed out standard content into your file. We also feed out the standard file name as well into the header, which means when you print your files out it will tie together the electronic version and the hard copy version. And of course now I'm here I can make a change to this file if I want to. Like that, and simply save and close it. I don't need to change the file name or do a save as and put an A on the end or anything like that. The system's going to manage all that for me. That file is now checked out to me, and it's kept a copy of that locally for me, so I can continue working on it whenever I want to. I can either come back to the location here and open the local copy, which is now there for me to continue working on it, or I can use up here the My Files area, and this very helpfully keeps account for me of all the files I've got checked out to work on for this project. So I don't have to come back and find things in the tree again. This is obviously a relatively simple project environment, but if we're thinking of a more complex one like the full prints 2 method, it might be difficult to track down all the files we've currently got checked out without something like this. So My Files here shows me which files I've got checked out on the project, whether they are present in my local checkout folder, and in fact when I check them out. So I can see actually I've had this work package out for quite a long time. If I want to open it from here I can continue working on it, or I could finish working on it, check it back in, or in fact undo the checkout, say well I don't really need it anymore, I'm going to put it back as it was and let somebody else work on it instead. So here's my project mandate example we were just looking at a second ago. What I'm going to do is check that one back in, and we use a standard check-in form here. I can give it a description if I wanted to say what I've been doing in the file for other people to read here. If I have appropriate permissions I can baseline and approve it, what we call self-approval rather than the sort of voting, invite other people to approve process we were looking at a moment ago. And I can also choose to increment the document numbering. If I make no choice it'll just increment the last element, so we'll go 62B. Okay, so that's refreshed there, and as I come back into here now and refresh my screen, we can see now the project mandate shows current version 62B is available for checkout by anybody. We can see who made the last set of changes, and in fact if we go and view this here we'll see it now with the changes that we've just been making. So really nice and easy, it handles all that stuff for you. It means you shouldn't be losing any versions anymore with people forgetting to change version numbers and overwriting things, and folders becoming jam-packed full with hundreds of versions of stuff, because what you're shown here is always the latest current version. If you want to go back in the audit trail and look, for example, at the first approved version of this file, we can go back and view that, and what we're viewing is version 00B. We can't ever check out and change a version from the audit trail. We can only check out and change the current version, but we can still go back and see these. So we've got a detailed record of what's happened to this file, to this management product, over a long period of time. And supporting that within the project structure can be a whole load of other content. So originally when we created this project, it would have just had a template for project mandate, but we've collected loads of other things that are required to support it, and that's very easy to do. We can just simply drag and drop to add things into our project, find a file from anything that supports drag and drop. Really, we've got one here that we're interested in, and I just drag it onto the document area. So I'm currently in project mandate, so by dragging to the add file here, it will add this file to project mandate. I can rename it if I want to, and I can give it a description if I want to as well. I'll just press OK, and it will add that file now to here. It's obviously left the original there, but it's put a new file into the system. It's available to any user now that has access to this document, and they can see who added it, when they added it. They can now check it out and change it, etc. if they want to. We can add all sorts of things to here. The add file button is not just a drag and drop area, but you can browse from here if you want to. You can use the template library, which provides, as part of this method, a number of templates which you think might be used more than once. So there's obviously one work package, one highlight report included in the standard project, but we may have many of these, so you can come back and add the extra ones you want by clicking on this, renaming it to work package 25 or whatever, and putting it in. Shortcuts here allow you to store links like files. So if you don't want to store the physical file in the project, for example it's a policy or a procedure on a website, you might want to store a link to it. That way, if it's a policy, you bring a copy of the physical file in, somebody changes the policy in the standard location while you're looking at an old copy. For things like that, you can instead bring in a reference, and we've got one of those here that somebody else has added to the project, and it just takes us to whatever is at that destination location, in this case our knowledge base. And those things can be templated into your project so they're there all the time, or they can be added as part by the project team as part of the documentation process for the project. Very helpful to keep all that sort of information together. So we've got working through the process here, looking at the documents and the files within them, viewing them, checking them out, checking them in, adding new content, all pretty straightforward actually. And for users of our Community Edition tool, upgrading to the multi-user platform, that's all standard stuff. It's pretty basic document management, but it's built around the processes, and that's what makes it unique, in that it's easy to follow for users. Extending this further, and this is covered in additional video tours as well as the approvals, is working with emails. Rather than working on files ourselves, we can instead choose to send a view or a checkout copy by email to somebody else to work on, and they can then bring it back. So that's in the additional email tour if you want to have a look at that. There's also a whole set of stuff around permissions, again in an additional tour for further interest there. What I want to talk about now is personalizing this process a little bit. So the project is created from a standard method template, but we can then intermingle content if we want to and change that standard view a little bit should we need to. So I'm just going to show you how we can do that by creating a new project, and I'm going to use a 5-step method. This isn't something we've looked at yet on this tour, but here's my new 5-step, and I'm going to call it Test 23, and I'm going to put it into the portfolio we're currently in, which is the marketing department. I could choose to add users to here as well at the same time if I wanted to. And that's now created that project from the method template. So I can come back to my project pick list, marketing department, and we can see that new project is here. It's also populated a load of its properties already. As part of that setup, it knows where its plans and risks and issues, etc. are. And here's our new project. It'll be provided with all its process and hints and tips, and as expected we've got blank versions of all of these templates available. So that's all really nice and easy. It's there straight away. It's ready for us to just start working on the content, and that's the same with plans, risks and issues as well. So here's my plan. It's currently, we can see in the database, already got one dummy task set into it, and that's because we've got a schedule here. That file has already been linked into the database and it's data read out, so all we have to do is start checking it out, making changes, feeding it back in, and that will feed straight away into the reporting, project controls database, etc. So that's all set up really easily from the method template. But sometimes we might want to personalize away from that. In terms of personalizing project controls, another video tour around that, but in terms of personalizing this process structure, we can do a number of things. This project will have been set up already with any stages that are required. So we've got a first start stage here. Not much in terms of content required during the start process, but when we come on to managing stages, we can see a better split perhaps between project level documentation, stage level documentation. And to add extra stages, I simply do that as the project manager by coming to manage stages and adding this type of mix of stages I want to, the number of them, to reflect the structure of the project. And that's a key part of obviously personalizing it. We can also personalize it by changing the document structures here. So I can take things out and put extra things in. I can link and share things with other sources of information. So for example, perhaps in this project we're going to say, well, we're not going to bother with a benefits review plan. So as the project manager, I can right click on this, I can recycle a document, that takes it out of the entire project. I could remove the document from this process but leave it in the rest of the project if I wanted to. I could of course move it up and down. I could change the hint and tip that it comes with when we hover on it. For now I'm just going to recycle it, so I'm going to take that document and its associated templates out of the project, and you'll see it's therefore created down here this recycle bin for me, which has got that content in it. And that's not visible to normal team members. So as the project manager, I can see the recycle bin, which means if I want to, I can put things back. But for the project team, as far as they're concerned, they'll no longer see the benefits review plan within the project. I could, of course, add additional things. I can add a new document. So we'll call our new document here simply test for now. And so we've got our test document. We might put some content into it if we wanted to. So let's just drop a template library item into it. A bit of a bigger template library here for this more substantial method. So our test document now has some content, and it only exists currently because we've just added it into the manage stage process. If I come back to deliver stages and I want to put test in there as well, now this time I'm going to add an existing document. It's going to show me my library of documents for this project. We can see test is now included in that, and that's now brought through test with its content. And of course we only hold the document once on the server. We just choose to show it to you following the instructions built from the method template, which documents appear in which processes. And as we can now see, we can personalize that for each particular project if we want to. Obviously only somebody with the appropriate permissions can do that. So this is personalizing within a project structure, but actually we can also choose to bring documentation from another project. So what I'm going to do here, just to demonstrate that it's possible, not a particularly typical thing to do, but I'm going to add an existing document here, not from the current project, but from another project that I have permissions for. So you need permissions on both projects to be able to do this. I'm going to go to my Office Move project, and we're going to grab the mandate from here because it's something we've seen already earlier in this tour. It'll be familiar to us. And we can see this got a blue S on it now. This is telling us that this document exists in not just one project but in 2 projects or more. So it's live shared content. We can see here exactly the same things. Again, that document and its constituent files are held once on the server. They're now displayed in two different projects. And that means I can make changes to the content from here. They'll be reflected in the other project. Other project can make changes and reflect in this project. So as products are handed over between projects, or as projects work into programs, programs work into portfolios, and key bits of documentation are shared between those structures. This is a great way of doing it, live sharing, because you can have all the projects, programs, etc. using their own methodologies, all on the same server, all managed through the same permissions model, and their content live shared. When we come to talking about assurance, which is again in another video tour, we'll talk about how we can see the actions of users with this content, and that will also be reflected across the multiple locations where it's held. Okay, so that's personalizing our method to some degree. Like I said, there's much further on that in some of the further video tours. The last thing I wanted to show you was this same sort of functionality, or much of it, but not here in the software, the Windows software application, but instead in the browser application. So what I've got here is standard browser app. This, of course, it's pure browser, so it can run on a computer as we are here, but it can also run on a smartphone or a tablet, some device of that type. And I can do pretty much the same sorts of things. We're going to focus here just on the document management side again, but I can come in and I can see my project. So let's go and find that project that we've just been working on, the one we've just set up brand new, test 23. No, not really much in terms of properties for it yet. But if we come into the working with documents area, what we'll see is, as we work our way through the process, very similar way to what we did before, we'll see the content that we've got set up, and we can see here our new shared project mandate document. We can see all the other various bits, and we can also, depending on the sort of device we're on, do some interesting things with these. So if I select the particular file, I could view the file from here, and that works pretty well on most devices. Even smartphones, tablets will often have something for viewing things like Word files. If of course you've got some rather more unusual file type, it may not be viewable on those sort of devices. If your device has the ability to support file management, we could also choose to check out that file, make changes to it in our tool, and then check the file back in from here as well. So very much dependent on the sort of device you're running, but the things you can definitely do from here are integrating with email, so you can use the server to send a copy of something to somebody. You can integrate with the approvals process from here as well, and as I say, viewing files, adding new bits of content if you've got them. So if you're on your tablet, for example, or your smartphone, just taking a site photo, you can use your browser on your smartphone to browse to this page, use add file, pick up the photo from your device and upload it to the site. All those sort of things, pretty well integrated. Okay, so that's just wrapped up the documents and process tour. There's many more tours on the website taking some of these points a little bit further on around assurance and emails, project controls, etc. in particular. But I hope you found that really useful. Any further questions, just drop us a line. Thank you.